Hi to Austin.
Yep. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever and wherever you're watching or listening. This is the Awesemo NHL Live Before Lock Hockey Show, and I am your host, Michael Clifford, aka Slim Cliffy. Joining me today to celebrate both President's Day in America and Family Day up here in Canada, our single entry assassin, Mr. Joshua Harris. Josh, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing pretty well, despite, everyone else in my house staring at me because every time they're home, Austin Matthews is in a really good spot, and I have to talk about it. And she thinks I love Austin Matthews, so the heart wants what the heart wants.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. Who can turn down the way that guy can just absolutely ring the puck, bar down and in? Just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Yahoo Fantasy. Yahoo has been our sponsor this entire season. They've been very good to us. A lot of our subscribers have jumped over and started playing on Yahoo. I've seen some people with some takedowns. So if you're a first-time DFS user over on Yahoo, or you just want to maybe get your feet wet without playing a lot of the sharks that you'll find on DraftKings or FanDuel, we do have some special giveaways through Yahoo. We'll talk a little bit later in the show. I see well over 100 people in chat. If you guys could, please throw us that thumbs up. Those likes really help us get to the top of the algorithm. The subscriptions especially are a big help to us. So if you could click that subscribe button, if you haven't already, it keeps this channel growing and it'll keep these shows coming on a regular basis. And of course, click the bell to get alerts whenever we do go live. All right, Josh, we had a couple slates over the weekend that we should talk about. Let's just briefly review that Saturday slate. I actually didn't end up doing too poorly. I had enough Anaheim and Los Angeles secondaries to make up for a lackluster Calgary one night. They did score a couple goals, but it wasn't a massive night from them. So I actually got back 3/4 of my entries, and I'll take that all day long. But yeah, Anaheim walked into Vancouver and just absolutely wallpapered them 7-4. And St. Louis went into Toronto and just laid the beat down 6-3. Is there anything that stood out to you from those games? You and I have talked a lot about how some St. Louis combinations don't look too good, and some, sometimes it seems like they're their own worst enemy. What did you think of those games on Saturday night? How'd you do on Saturday night?
I did all right. I think I cashed Saturday. I would have cashed yesterday if Igor, connected on that empty net goal. That would have been sweet. But Saturday, yeah, I was excited about playing Milano, Zegras, Raquel, and then they switched up the lines, and I was on Natural Stat Trick looking at the samples of these new lines that they had, and there just wasn't a big sample on anything. So I was like, I'm not going to full stack anything. I went off Silfverberg because he was under 3K, and I needed to fit them in with. I went Calgary 1, Toronto 2. I needed a cheap one-off, so I went Silfverberg, and he did fine. But, for 7 goals, he didn't do enough. But, I don't know. In that St. Louis Toronto game, both second lines, we talked about Kyrou being there instead of Tarasenko, it definitely helps offensively, but it definitely doesn't help defensively. And it showed because both second lines did pretty heavy work in that game.
Yeah, exactly. And one of those second lines we'll be talking about a little bit later in this show. But yeah, a really good game there from St. Louis. Yesterday was, I was really hoping Igor would have scored that goal. That would have been pretty cool. It was a pretty big slate yesterday, all day Sunday slate. We had a lot of teams get absolutely pounded. Minnesota put up 7 on the Oilers. Columbus put up 7 on the Sabres. I really didn't do that well yesterday. I went all in on Florida. And even though Barkov and Ekblad did well, most of the wingers did not. So not a good day for me. There was some good days in our chat though that I did see. Hofbrau, got to give a shout out to Hofbrau, took down the 40K MME over on FanDuel for a 10 grand first prize. Saw Wolf Girl. She seems to be crushing it pretty much every time she's in chat. She went over 8x last night, won a bunch of tickets, and Henry said he took down second in the quarter arcade. So pretty good day. Those are always tough slates. Those all day weekend slates, because it is a Sunday, but you still have things to do. You still have, maybe you have errands to run. You've got stuff to do around the house, obviously cooking meals and stuff like that. You can't check your phone or check your laptop at 1 p.m. and then 3 p.m. and then 4 p.m. and then 5:30 p.m. I mean, you should, but it's tough to do that. And I guess we got another one of those today, don't we?
Yeah. It's tough for us to sit on here and make lineups with this 1 o'clock game while we're on the air. But you saw yesterday, there was a 1 o'clock game, and then it was spread out every 2 hours, kind of like this one. Pit 1 was 3% owned. There's going to be some heavier it looks like there's going to be some heavier ownership on this early game today, but I think it's not going to be as high as we expect, because I think a lot of people are just I don't want to be dead at 1:30. You know what I mean? They want to have a sweat throughout the day. So I think people tend to fade the first game and hope it doesn't do anything, and have some later plays so they can be involved later, and don't have to spend family time with people who think they love Austin Matthews.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who would ever think that? I can't imagine anyone would ever think that. One thing I just want to ask you before we jump into these games, and obviously a slate like this, it plays to late swapping. You and I have talked about it a lot on earlier shows this season. Late swapping, I'm sure people in basketball that are here from basketball will obviously be very familiar with late swapping. I will say for hockey, the one time I do it, let's say, for example, this first game coming up is Colorado and Boston. Let's say I use Boston 1 with Jeremy Swayman, the goalie in net. And let's say Boston 1 goes absolutely bananas, but, Swayman gets lit up, doesn't have a good day. I might switch my stack that's coming later in the day if it's a chalky one, because I'm assuming somebody has Boston 1 plus a much better goaltender than I had in Swayman. So that's kind of where I would late swap here is, if you're playing somebody in the Colorado or Boston game and they do look like they're going to be optimal early on, but your goalie doesn't do well, that's kind of where I would jump into late swaps and try to swap around, because I'd have to assume somebody has the same stack I do plus a better goaltender. How would you handle late swaps on a slate like this?
Well, we'll just start with like if you start out super hot and you have tons of points going into your late stack, don't do anything. You already have all the points. You gotta, you let the people behind you make those swaps and make the mistakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to that lineup organically. So you leave it in there. You let other people make that decision, what they need to do to catch you. That being said, I agree with you. If you have a stack that goes off and the goalie just doesn't do great, you're right. Someone's going to have that combination where, they have that stack with a possible better goalie. So I think, you have to consider it. Depends what your secondary stack is. If you're not, if you're making a 4-3-1 correlated, then yeah, you probably should think about it. But another scenario where I would swap is if I have a stack that does okay, and I'm out of the money going into my late stack and I know it's a chalky one, I'll probably just auto swap to a equally high ceiling spot with way less ownership, just in the chance that they go off and I can leapfrog those chalky people and min cash. But like, if you're way in the money, just buckle up and let it ride. You're way out of the money, that's when you make these swaps and just hope you cash. And then if you're in the cash with some issues, the goalie wasn't great, you got to make a decision. Do you let it ride? And, would you rather get like a top 5% finish and just take the money, or do you want to swap into a lower owned and hope it goes off and you can leapfrog into the top 1%?
Yeah, exactly. There are decisions to make. This is a good slate for it. We'll be in Discord most of the day, you and I and a bunch of other people. So people do have some late swap questions. Awesemo subscribers, don't be afraid to drop a question in our Discord. Want to mention, we have free premium tools up on the site today. Our NHL ownership projections are live up on the site for today. So if you want to check out the ownership that Josh and I have been talking about so far, and we'll talk about on the rest of the show, head on over to awesemo.com because those projections are free for everyone today. All right, let's jump into these games, Josh. First one, that's the one that you just talked about, and it's a pretty important game with a 6 total. Colorado, 3.4 implied goal total. Going into Boston, the Bruins have a 2.6 implied goal total. This is Brad Marchand's final game of his suspension, so he won't be back. It'll still be Taylor Hall on the top line. Honestly, just take this wherever you want to go, because I think there is a lot of interest here in a pretty high power game.
Yeah, so we got two really, really good top lines here. I guess you can, like, people throw around the word elite too much, but yeah, I think you can throw it around for this. Like, yeah, Taylor Hall has issues finishing, but like from a numbers standpoint, their numbers are elite offensively and defensively. From a generation standpoint, they're going to be getting one of the best lines, if not the best line in the NHL in Colorado one. You see their price has come down under 21K. And you mentioned to me before the show, we've seen them up around 25K at points. So, they're coming in around 22% ownership. I think that might be a bit high, but I think back, anytime I'm thinking about fading Colorado one in a tough spot, I always think about your tweet, like about how Matthews on the brain. Look what you did.
There you go. Look
what you did to me. Anyway, Colorado McKinnon, McKinnon's in a bad spot as I'm begging for change on the corner. You know what I mean? So like, Colorado one is 20% cheaper than they have been. They're going to get, that Boston one matchup, and they have very good numbers. Like, their defensive numbers are really, really good, but Colorado one is matchup proof. They're 20,800 on DraftKings. Toronto one is 22,700. Calgary one's 22,400. Boston one's 20,400. Colorado one's like 19. So like, they're the third most expensive when they're normally the most expensive by far. So I think that does definitely put Colorado one into play here. They're still without Marchand, and yeah, Bergeron being back definitely helps their penalty kill, but Marchand is probably their best penalty killer along with Bergeron. So their penalty kill is not completely up to snuff here. So I think there's definitely some merit to Colorado one. hoping they come in a little bit lower owned. If you're thinking about playing them, you hope to see them around 15%, 22% still on a 5-game slate for a forward correlated excellent line is fine. I'm just hoping to see them a little bit lower owned. On the flip side, I think, with Boston coming in around 8%, like their numbers are still excellent. And, I'd rather, I know the total's lower, this and that. I think I'd rather go to Boston 1 here just from an ownership perspective, because this line is still elite. Darcy Kemper has had some issues this season. I don't know. Like, I think both top lines are definitely viable today. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, it does worry me that's a 1 p.m. game. So, like, I think you may get lower ownership just because people don't want to be dead before the end of this game. But on the flip side, if they go off and you don't have them, you may be dead before the next game. So, it's a double-edged sword here. So I think both top lines are in play. I do also like Colorado too. Like Trent Frederick, Charlie Coyle, Craig Smith, not a great line going into them. Like, yeah, Colorado too hasn't been great, but they're not super expensive. Burakovsky and Nishushkin, 7,400 for the two of them at DK. Kadri, we've seen Kadri's price come down. He was in the low 8s for a while there. He's 6,700 on the top power play. So I think Colorado too is an interesting play as well. So, top 6 for Colorado, and I do like the Boston top line. Not sure there's much that I like in the Boston depth.
I want to talk about that Boston top line first, because they are going into Colorado top line. But you and I have talked about sometimes you gotta start paying attention to how, not necessarily just how lines have played all season, but how they've been playing of late. Colorado's top line, 52% shot share, 56% expected goal share over their last 100 minutes. Like that's good. Don't get me wrong. But they were over 60% in both categories up until that point this season. It seems like their play has started to slide a little bit over the last month or so. They're still an elite line. They can go out and put up 5 goals on any given team. But I think there might be some merit to using Boston here because Colorado's offensive numbers have really, at least their expected goals and shot attempts for have declined a fair bit over the last, month. That's why I don't mind Boston 1 here. On Saturday, I absolutely went in on Taylor Hall and his shooting ability. But that doesn't mean Patrice Bergeron and David Pastrnak can't score. And like you said, we're getting them at pretty good ownership. Nearly 20% top 2 stack by our top stacks tool and 8% ownership. I think that Boston top line is definitely more than fine. Definitely in play for me here in this game. The one thing that concerns me is Colorado's penalty kill. Like, it's not great, but it's fine, and they don't take a ton of penalties. So, I don't know if you have to full stack. You definitely don't have to play Charlie McAvoy, and we'll talk about him in a minute, though I still think he's a fine play. But I really do like Boston 1. Colorado 1, obviously, is just fine here in this game. Anybody wants to use him, go right ahead. I just think, a West Coast team playing on the road, 1 p.m. start, going into Patrice Bergeron, like those are just some in a single entry 3 max type situation. Those are the types of situations I tend to avoid. So I would rather play Boston 1, all other things equal, over Colorado 1. I agree with you on Colorado 2. The problem had generally been with Colorado 2 that they weren't generating quality shots. They were generating a lot of shots, but not a lot of quality. That started to turn around a little bit. Their last 75 minutes, about 3 expected goals per 60. Not super elite, but it's very, very good. So I agree with you going into that Boston second line. I think there's some matchups they can take advantage of. So I do like Colorado 2 in this game. I do like Boston 1 as well in this game. The third lines to me are interesting. Because Compher and Jost typically haven't played well together this year. DeBrusk and Lazar, it seems like Lazar always, like, he's like a little pest, and he works really hard, and him and DeBrusk seem to have had good chemistry at times, and I wonder, if that's not a bad matchup going into Colorado 3, but I think in that situation, you're only using Boston 3 if you're using a super expensive Colorado 1 stack or a Toronto power play stack or something like that. That'd be the only situation I would consider them. So Boston 1, Colorado 2 for me. On the blue line, it seems like the Colorado defense prices have come down. So, Gerard, I think, is certainly more than fine. On the Colorado side, if you want to get a super cheap defenseman in, there's just not a lot that I really want to take from the blue line in this game. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you are playing Colorado one, I think McCarr makes some sense just because his price has come down. If you can't get there, Devin Tays is going to play big minutes. On the Boston side, there's just not much, outside of maybe punting for some blocks with Carlo.
All right, let's move this along. Carolina, 3.5 implied goal total going into Philly. The Flyers have a 2.6 implied goal total. Looks like Carolina, for now at least, sticking with that top line, Svechnikov, Aho, Teravainen. I guess we'll see when warmups hit at 3:00 Eastern, or at 2:30 Eastern. On the Flyers side, Lindblom, Giroux, Atkinson still expected on the top line. Carter Hart has already been confirmed in net. We assume Frederik Andersen for Carolina, though you know what they say about assuming. All right, Josh, what do you like in this game?
I like Carolina one here. They're fully correlated. They are going to get some ownership. They're a little bit under 20K though, which is, viable for sure. Flyers obviously have some issues on their team. That top line is missing Couturier, and that's a big loss for them. That Aho matchup getting Giroux, definitely very favorable for Carolina one here. So I'm definitely in on Carolina one. I'm in on both top lines, I think. I don't know if I'm going to get to the Flyers top line in 1 to 3, but in MME, I'd definitely be interested in Flyers one. Like Aho, Svechnikov, and Teravainen, very good offensively, but they do give up chances defensively. So Flyers top line in play for me. Also, yeah, the Carolina Hurricanes have a very good penalty kill, but they spend a lot of time shorthanded. So getting that penalty, getting that power play correlation with Giroux and Atkinson is a plus here. So I think both top lines are viable here. I kind of like the Flyers second line as a filler. I know Trocheck should be in, but he got banged up over the weekend. So it could be, Kotkaniemi on that second line. We'll have to wait and see. But that second line as it is, like Van Riemsdyk, Lawton, Konechny, they've been actually pretty good. So I don't mind them as a filler. Van Riemsdyk and Konechny are on the top power play there, so you get some power play time. So if it is Kotkaniemi there, like Lorentz, Kotkaniemi, Necas, I just, that's a matchup where that would favor Philly too.
Yeah, the Carolina top line, you talk about them giving up chances, and I just kind of want to put a point on that. Svechnikov and Aho, when they're skating together, 3.5 expected goals against per 60 minutes. It's just that they're generating nearly 4 expected goals per 60 minutes offensively. Like, they're really, really good offensively. It's just they are giving it up. If you look at the entire top line with Teravainen in there, 32 scoring chances against per 60 minutes and 44. So 40 scoring chances for. So obviously they're generating a lot, but they are also giving a lot in return. So I do like that call on Philly one. They're coming in over leveraged, but I think that's kind of fine for what they are, right? Like, that's a top line coming in under 15K. Atkinson and Giroux are probably going to play 20 minutes thereabouts. 20 minutes against a high-paced offensive line. I think they're definitely worst over-leveraged spots to go after. So yeah, I don't mind Philly one. I will say, I think I'm going single entry today. I'm not considering a lot in that mid-range for my single entry, but yeah, if you're 20 maxing 150, you absolutely have to consider them going into Carolina one. Here's the thing with what Carolina is doing with their ice time is now that they've stacked that, quote unquote, stack that top line, their second and third lines are basically playing similar minutes. That worries me because, Trocheck and Necas coming in with reasonable ownership. I mean, reasonable, coming in 4%, coming in over owned. And then I see the third line coming in under 1% top 2 stack and 5% ownership. And I'm wondering, like, what's going on there? Maybe it's people are catching up on that ice time, but I want to mention that Trocheck and Stahl might not be playing significantly different minutes, assuming that Trocheck plays here today. So I think it's, for me, it's definitely just Carolina 1. Like, I don't think that's a spot where I'd want to dig into the depth considering how owned they are, right? Like the second and third lines we have at 2% ownership, at 2% top two stack combined and over 8% ownership. Like that just feels a little bit too much. I'd rather just play Philly 1 and just play the more expensive line. That's way more likely to be optimal here today. So that's kind of where I am in this game, is both Philly 1 and Carolina 1. You mentioned the elite Carolina penalty kill. I don't like attacking this penalty kill in particular because, one, yeah, they are very good, but two, they counterattack a lot. And that certainly makes somebody like Carter Hart a little bit more difficult to use if he's always facing 2-on-1s while he's shorthanded or whatever. So I'm not sure that I'd be necessarily playing Philly for the power play, but I do like that Carolina 1 matchup here today. So yeah, Carolina 1, Philly 1. If you want to jump down to Carolina 3, I think that can be fine because they are playing so many minutes, but I don't know that I would 3-man stack them. I really don't. I think it would be something like Stahl Niederreiter plus Slavin or Stahl Niederreiter plus Pesci or something like that. I don't know that I would be 3-man stacking. On the blue line, Carolina's been basically running 4 defensemen. So, I think any of their top 4 is necessarily fine, depending, whether you want to stack with the power play or whatever. On the Flyers side, Rasmus Ristolainen is obviously back in the lineup. Not sure I necessarily want to play him, but he's somewhat cheap at 3,500. I honestly don't think there's a defenseman I'm playing out of this game unless I'm correlating with a power play stack. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get that mid-range guys, Brady Shea, Brett Pesce are fine. Justin Braun, 2,800's okay. Sanheim, 3,300, okay. Ristolainen, 3,500, okay. It's just like, doesn't feel great putting them into my lineup. I probably would look to someone like, I don't know, like Chris Tanev at 2,900 even.
Yeah, I agree with that. Hockey Freak Sean asking in chat, love the jersey. Are you a Canucks fan? No, not a Canucks fan, but I am a Bo Horvat fan. There are certain players that I do like watching. Big fan of Bo Horvat, have been for a long time. I think he was a guy that was just kind of saddled with absolute, like, nearly nobodies on the top line. It was Elias Pettersson that was getting all the elite line mates for 2 or 3 years, and he carried a line by himself. And I just got to, you know what? You just got to respect that. Get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our top stacks, our lineup builder, and a whole lot more. Of course, if you're only looking to play NHL DFS, then you can sign up for one of our Awesemo Plus NHL packages for as low as $3.95 a week. Please note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and can be easily added on with these packages at checkout, but it is not included in the base package. It is very valuable. It can be a very valuable addition to your DFS arsenals for those looking to enter multi-enter contests. Sorry. Stop guessing, start winning. Awesemo Plus today. All right, let's get to our next game here, Josh. We got Winnipeg with a 2.4 implied goal total. They're going into Calgary. The Calgary Flames have a 3.6 implied goal total. You and I talk about Calgary a lot. One of our favorite teams to stack all over the place. Want to mention Winnipeg has a new second line. Cole Perfetti was hurt. They've tried, Christian Vesalainen and Evgeny Svechnikov and different guys there at times, but Adam Brooks, waiver pickup, was on the second line in practice yesterday. So it at least looks like he's going to start there. Whether he finishes the game there is an entirely different matter. Neither of the goalies are confirmed yet, but I suspect it'll be Hellebuck against Jacob Markstrom because this is at least Hellebuck. It's an important game for Winnipeg. I guess they're all important. What do you like in this one, Josh?
So we got our Winnipeg 1 flow sheet out. Is Winnipeg 1 in a bad matchup? Yes. Should we play them? Yes. Whenever they're in a bad matchup, they always go off. When they're in a good matchup, they suck. I'm just kidding, though. But, like, Winnipeg 1's probably going to get a whole bunch of the Mangiapane, Backlund, Coleman line, which is just a brutal matchup. Man, My voice is just like going crazy this weekend.
Yeah, mine's too. Mine's a lot drier today than it normally is on the shows. I
I
don't
feel
know.
fine, but like my voice is just going. But anyway, Winnipeg is not a great team 5-on-5 as it is, and they're going to get one of the best 5-on-5 lines in the matchup. I'm kind of out on Winnipeg here. I know that second line, like on paper, is good. Like, yeah, Adam Brooks isn't there, but like if you look at that second line's numbers with and without Cole Perfetti, and I know Cole Perfetti hasn't been great for DFS, but he just from a hockey perspective, he makes that second line so much better. And yeah, they may get they're going to see, Monahan, Lucic, Toffoli a little bit, but they're also going to see a fair bit of that Lindholm, Gaudreau, Kachuk matchup. So I'm pretty much out on Winnipeg. In MME in 150s. Obviously, you don't want to cancel. You don't want to X out lines on a 5-game slate. So yeah, you get some in MME there. But for me, this is a Calgary game, and it's just a matter of how you want to build, really. If you want to use Calgary as a primary stack, you use Calgary 1. If you want to use Calgary as a filler stack, you use Calgary 2. Calgary 1, they're going to get that third line matchup of Lowry, Reichel, and Vesalainen. Or, they don't hard match, really. They'll go out against the middle six. They're going to avoid Scheifele and Wheeler. So, those middle six matchups are very good for Calgary 1. They've been excellent this season. They're one of the best leverage spots on the slate. If you want to use that second line, perfectly fine. They're going to get Scheifele and Wheeler, who have been awful 5-on-5. And, that Calgary second line has just been running over teams 5-on-5. The reason they're not super expensive is because they don't get power play time and they play 15, 16 minutes. But can they do that damage in 15, 16 minutes? Absolutely. So I'm in on Calgary here. You want to even go to that third line, you want to do Monahan, Toffoli, I think that's fine. But for me, I'm Calgary top 6.
Yeah, I just want to put, again, just a little stats point on what you meant by Dubois and Kyle Connor not being the same without Cole Perfetti. As I mentioned, they have used different players on that line this year. They've used Christian Vesalainen. They've used Christian Reichel. They've used, today's going to be Adam Brooks. They have used a lot of different players on that line. If you look at their numbers with and without Cole Perfetti, it's the defensive numbers that take the biggest hit. Like their expected goals against actually goes up by about 25%. And that is huge. And we're not talking a small sample here. We're talking 350 minutes of ice time. That's a third of a season for a second line. So, I think Winnipeg 2 can still do well offensively, but this is a bad offensive matchup for them. And they're not going to be very good defensively. So, I'm with you on Calgary 2. I think this is a great matchup for them. They are coming in over leveraged, but at the same time, like if you look at the under leveraged lines, like Colorado or Boston or whatever, you can fit them in with those lines, and the ownership can kind of work itself out. Like I wouldn't be too concerned about a 6% top 2 stack Calgary line coming in at 10% or something like that. That's not something that would overly concern me. But we do have to talk about Calgary 1. Like their last 100 minutes, 3.7 expected goals for, 5.2 actual goals for, controlling 63% of the shots. Like they're just absolutely mugging the opponent. It's not even close. And you mentioned Winnipeg 1, their bad numbers. 45% of the shot share, 49% of the expected goal share. That's not nearly good enough, if they get this matchup, when Calgary 1 tends to play some more depth, but it's not like the Cole Perfetti line or the third line is going to be any better than the top line defensively. Like or not the Cole Perfetti line, sorry, the Pierre-Luc Dubois line or the third line are going to be any better defensively. So yes, I completely agree that both Calgary 1 and 2 are perfectly fine. Honestly, somebody asked in chat, like, when does the Calgary gravy train have to run out? And it's a fun question because they're still playing super elite, but they're also running a bit hot, right? Like 14% shooting at 5-on-5 is fairly high. Like elite lines will finish the season at around 11 or 12% or something like that. So even a 14% run is a bit high. But if they're going to keep generating 3.7 or 3.8 expected goals per 60 minutes when they're on the ice, like I don't see a reason to stop playing them, right? Like, yeah, maybe they don't score 6 goals per 60 minutes for the rest of the season, but this Winnipeg penalty kill, it's fine, but it's not a super elite. The Calgary power play, generally speaking, has been excellent. Like, there are different ways to score than otherwise just being good at 5-on-5. So I really, really do like that Calgary top line. They're heavy in my mix for my main stack. I honestly, I think I'm going to be picking between Boston top line and Calgary top line about which one I'm going to be playing here. I might be playing Taylor Hall. Jake, can you believe that? So that's kind of where I am with this game. Is Calgary 1, definitely Calgary 2. I honestly think Calgary 3 is also in play in this game as well. I know they're coming in a bit over-owned, but Milan Lucic is on that line. And I know people like to make fun of Milan Lucic, but he's not. He's a pretty good defensive player. And I think that can help stabilize Monahan and Toffoli a little bit. So even if you just want a two-man Toffoli and Monahan, I think that's just fine.
The thing with Lucic, I forget what player you said about this, I think, on Saturday. When he gets into the offensive zone, he just parks himself in front of the goalie.
Yeah.
And, like, he's hard to move.
Yeah, and it frees up some space for those guys to make crossing passes and stuff like that. So yeah, I think especially where Winnipeg 3 is a pretty bad line, 43% expected goal share in their 150 minutes together. I think Calgary 3 going into them, I think a two-man of Monahan and Toffoli here absolutely just fine. All right, blue line, Josh Morrissey has been playing a lot of minutes of late. And it seems like they're really, really favoring him, not only with power play minutes, but just minutes in general. He's played 23-30, 24-50, 20, 24-50, and 25-50 in his last 5 games. Like, he's playing 24 minutes a game of late. That's pretty unusual for Winnipeg defensemen. So I wonder if this lasts. But I think that's important for him because, it helps, drive up those peripherals and bring peripherals more in play for DraftKings. I think Morrissey, I think he's fine as a one-off here today. He's not necessarily a big target of mine, but I think he's definitely playable. On the Calgary side, you mentioned Chris Tanev earlier. I do like him for 2,900. Anybody else stick out to you on the blue line?
Noah Hannafin, Oliver Shillington in play. If you want a power play stack and include Rasmus Anderson, I think that's fine. I'd rather play some of the other guys. I played Eric DeBranson on Saturday. Dude had 7 shots on goal. Like, that's just crazy. But I'd probably just find the extra 200 for Tanev over DeBranson if you could.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. We have partnered with Yahoo Fantasy this NHL season to bring you some great offers. Check out our exclusive limited time offer, which gets you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. To qualify, you need to be new to Yahoo, sign up for an account via the link below, deposit and play. That's it. Yahoo will send us your name after you played in your first paid contest, and we will reach out via email with your coupon. If you'd like to speed up the process of getting access, email support@awesemo.com and we'll get you set up right away. You can also claim a free $10 of site credit by clicking the link in the video description below, and that can be used to enter any Yahoo contest, including tonight's $2,000 NHL Baller. Make sure to use our DFS tools and projections designed specifically for Yahoo to give yourself the best shot at winning big. All right. Next game, Toronto, 4 implied goal total going into Montreal. Montreal Canadiens have a 2.4 implied goal total. All right. I want to talk about my beloved Montreal Canadiens here just real briefly. It has been 5 games with Martin St. Louis behind the net as the coach, and their defensive numbers actually haven't really budged. They're pretty much about as bad defensively as they've always been all season long. Now, the offensive numbers, expected goals, have gone up from 2.0 to 2.0 over the previous 20 games to 2.4 over the previous 5 under Martin St. Louis. Now, obviously, 5 games does not a season make, but it is a very good sign that the Montreal Canadiens are actually generating offense at a league average rate. Like, league average is just a monster step up from where they were. So they're actually doing some work offensively, but they are really still giving it up in the defensive end as well. Should be a fair amount of Toronto ownership here tonight, Josh. But I don't think we could necessarily turn away from a 4 total. What do you like here?
Yeah, I think if you're interested in using Leafs, I think there's, 2 ways to go about it. Because Austin Matthews is going to be the highest owned player on the Leafs. Like it's not even going to be close. Like he may actually be the highest owned player on the slate. I think there's going to be a one-off Matthews in people's lineups, and I think that's a mistake because if Matthews is going to get there, someone's going to come along for the ride. Whether it's going to be Marner or it's going to be someone like Nylander on the power play, Tavares on the power play, Riley on the power play. Now, power play stacking is very, very expensive. I think you would have to make a decision to leave off one of Marner or Tavares. You know, outside of Matthews, they're the two most expensive, and you throw in like Nylander and Riley and go about your day. I think another way to attack this game to get lower ownership is to full stack lines. Because while Matthews is going to be super high owned, Marner 8,400, Bunting 5,100 aren't going to be as nearly as popular as Matthews. So I think if you want to get that line fully stacked, you're going to get that 3 around, 10%, despite, Matthews possibly being 30% on the slate. So I think you either full stack Toronto 1 or Toronto 2, or you do some sort of power play stack. Very expensive to power play stack, but the Canadiens penalty kill is awful. So I think, doing some sort of power play stack is viable. On the Canadian side, I know Montreal 1 is going to be over leveraged, but, like Toronto has some defensive issues. Peter Mrazek in net doesn't inspire much confidence. I don't know. I think, because they're super cheap. Like they're 10-2 on DraftKings to full stack, let you get in some, of these more expensive non-Toronto stacks. I think, in 1 to 3, am I going to, put in, 12, 13% Montreal 1? No. But in MME, I think, because one thing since Martin St. Louis has done since he's taken over, Nick Suzuki has played big minutes. So I think getting, close to 20 minutes or even over 20 minutes for this top line, it's not a great matchup, but like Toronto does give it up defensively at times. So I think getting to some Montreal 1 in MME does make some sense.
Yeah, just to your point about the Montreal penalty kill, a big problem with them is that they're taking a lot of penalties of late. Like they're amongst the most penalized teams in the NHL over the last 6 weeks. In fact, it's only the Nashville Predators that have more time shorthanded than the Montreal Canadiens since Christmas. So that's kind of the problem with the Habs here, is that the penalty kill isn't awful, but they just take way, way, way too many penalties. And unless you're the Carolina Hurricanes, no team can afford to do that. So that's the problem with Montreal's penalty kill here. And I think that's what kind of makes a Toronto power play stack interesting. Like Toronto has some expensive players, particularly over on DraftKings here today. Mitch Marner back up to 8,400, which is like Leon Draisaitl territory. With the Montreal penalty kill being so bad, or at least them taking so many penalties, you can not play Marner and you can just go like Matthews, Nylander, Riley. And I think that's just perfectly fine as a stack. So I don't think you necessarily have to 3-man stack the top line or the second line here in this game. I think you can power play stack them and that'll work out just fine. Like I know Michael Bunting's been on a little bit of a tear here, but 5,100 for, 16 minutes with no power play time or whatever, I'd rather just go play Andrew Mangiapane or Blake Coleman from Calgary for a cheaper price. You know what I mean? So I think Toronto power play stacking is kind of the way to attack that game. So, somebody likes the 5-on-5 matchup in particular. Like I will say, go right ahead and stack a 5-on-5 if there's a lineup you like. But I just think power play stacking with how many penalties Montreal takes is a good way to go here. Should mention that Montreal's new second line hasn't been too bad. The Dauphin, Gallagher, Hoffman line. It's just that they haven't played a lot yet. We're only looking 30 to 40 minutes, break even by shot share. We'll see how they do. They've been playing a lot versus the depth, so it's not like they're going to go out and get a lot of Austin Matthews here tonight. So I think a one-off Mike Hoffman is fine. The guy's only 3K, and he's still very good on the power play. He can definitely dong here tonight. So that's kind of where I am with the Montreal depth. Like if you want a one-off Gallagher or one-off Hoffman or something like that, I think that's fine. I agree with you on the Montreal top line. stacking is more of an MME thing for me. I would rather honestly just go to like the Philly top line or something like that if I was going to use, a less than stellar premium trio. On the blue line, like I said, I think I'd play Morgan Riley in power play stacks. I'm not sure if I would necessarily play him as a one-off here tonight in a 4 total. I think you're better off playing him in some sort of stack. On the Montreal side, Ben Sherratt came back in their last game and he's getting some secondary power play minutes. Not that it really means a lot on this team, but he was like a 4K player before he got hurt. So I think 3,200 for Ben Sherratt is just fine. Anybody else kind of stick out here?
Not really. I don't know. They gave Sandin a shot. He's down on the third pair again. They traded for Ilya Lyubushkin. Not sure that fixes anything. So yeah, I mean, if you want to play Muzzin at 4,200 in no man's land, I think that's fine. I think people are just going to like click in Jeff Petrie because he had a good game the other day from a DFS perspective, but I just don't have much interest. It's Ben Sherratt or nothing on the Montreal side.
Yep. Let's just check out. I saw one question in chat. Who is the best one-off 2,800 and under for you guys? I'll give you a second to look through your list. I'm looking mainly at Nino Niederreiter. I think he's going to be in a very good matchup going into that Flyers depth here today. Oh, speaking of which, just saw over here on Twitter, Carter Hart has an eye infection, won't be starting for the Flyers. He was confirmed to start. He's not starting. It is going to be Party Marty Jones starting for the Flyers here today at home against Carolina. 2,900 and under, Brendan Gallagher and Nino Niederreiter for me. What about you?
Yeah, it's Brendan Gallagher was the one that I saw. I don't mind. Let's see. There's got to be someone else that I can mention. Maybe a Mason Appleton going into Vancouver, Edmund Price.
I mean, Josh Anderson sticking with Montreal. He's on the top line now for 2,800.
Yeah, I'd much rather play Anderson than, Nino Niederreiter. But I don't know. Once you get under 3K for these one-offs, there's issues with all of them. It's kind of like the cheap golfers in DFS. Like, yeah, they're good at some stuff, but they're awful at some other stuff. Like, you just kind of hoping. I think, Anderson with the minutes is probably your best bet.
Yep. All right. Let's go with Josh Anderson then. I just love Nino Niederreiter, so I'll just say I don't mind.
And it is Party Marty in that, so
yeah, exactly.
Buckle up.
Let's get to this final game then. We've got the Seattle Kraken 2.6 implied goal total. They're going into Vancouver. The Vancouver Canucks have a 3.3 implied goal total. I said in our chat earlier that I think we have to consider Seattle here today. We typically don't, but they have the same goal total as Boston. They have the same goal total as Philly, and they have a higher total than both Winnipeg and Montreal. Can't just really ignore them as much as I'd like to. What do you think about this one here, Josh?
Yeah, when you said that, I started taking a little bit of a dive on the Canucks lines, and this is what I found. Canucks won. JT Miller, Bo Horvat, Brock Besser, in a 93-minute sample. That's a fairly sizable sample. Offensively, 49% Corsi for, so they're underwater there. 1.74 expected goals for, which is terrible. Defensively, they're giving up 32 scoring chances against, 17 high danger chances against per 60, and a 3.5 expected goals against. That's honestly some of the worst numbers I've ever seen for a top line. It might be the worst defensive top line this season. Now, they're probably going to get Marcus Johansson, Alex Wenberg, Jordan Embroi, which maybe I've been excited about in 2008. But like in 2022, I guess you can play them. They're very cheap. They're fully correlated on the power play. On the Seattle side, like I'm kind of interested in Donato McCann, 2-man. Like Donskoy's on that line. He hasn't shot the puck at all this season. I'm not sure what's going on with him, but Jared McCann, Ryan Donato, the two guys on the Seattle Kraken who actually are shooting the puck right now. The Pettersson, Pearson, Garland line and the third lines and the fourth lines don't have as awful defensive numbers as that top line, but they're still not great. So, I want to go to the Seattle side, the line where they're actually shooting the puck, and that's McCann, Donato. Will they mix up their lines? Certainly possible. It's Seattle. You know what I mean? Like they haven't had set lines for more than 4 games at a time all season. So obviously it's the late game. We'll have to see in warmups, but you know, McCann, Donato, they're shooting the puck. Interested in them. You want to go to the top line going against that awful Canucks top line? Sure, go for it. On the Canucks side, yeah, you know, Seattle has their issues in net and defensively. So if you want to go to that top line, despite their awful numbers, go for it because they're fully correlated on the power play. And you've talked about it a lot. Like the Canucks rely on, they're similar to the Rangers where they, you know, if they're going to win games, it's going to be because they scored on the power play. Now that second line with Tanner Pearson, they got there at 5-on-5. Like any line Pearson's on kind of has stability at 5-on-5. And, you know, if you want to go to Pearson, Pettersson, Garland for that 5-on-5, I think that's fine. But if you want to do the power play stuff, I think it's the top line.
Yeah, just to kind of expand on what you said about that Vancouver power play, both JT Miller and Brock Besser are at around 40% of their production this year coming from the power play. You expect that from like a power play defenseman, so like a Tony DeAngelo or a Quinn Hughes or something like that. You don't expect it from your top line center or your top line winger. Unless, you know, unless they're Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. That's basically the only instance that happens. And the thing with Horvat and Miller is that it's not just this year too. Like going back to last year, Horvat and Miller just do not play well together. And sometimes it's just a clash of styles, right? Like guys you don't have to play similarly, but you have to know how guys are going to play, and you have to be able to get into the right spots for the right plays, for the right players and stuff like that. So, you know, hockey's a complicated game. Horvat and Miller don't seem to have it figured out just yet. If they go up against Donato and McCann, slow pace, but they're controlling the play, and those guys are shooting more than anybody else on the Kraken. So, you know, I look at our lineup builder, and Donato McCann, technically the third line, but they're projecting for 4 more points on DraftKings than either of the top 2 lines by, you know, according to our projections. So, yeah, I really do like Donato and McCann as a 2-man here for Seattle. I think you're fine going up to like Eberle, Wenberg, Johansson. And the reason for that is the Vancouver penalty kill is pretty bad. Like bottom 3 by expected goals against over the last 6 weeks. And that Seattle top line is perfectly correlated on top power play unit, coming in with very low ownership. They're coming in by our top stacks tool, coming in with about 2.5% ownership, 1.5% chance of a top stack. So if you're 20 maxing or something like that, maybe, you know, 1 or 2 with full Seattle 1 lineups is just fine. So that's kind of where I go on the Seattle side. On the Vancouver side, I think it's either the second line or power play stacking. Pettersson and Garland typically have played pretty well together this year. 2.6 expected goals for, 2.1 against per 60 minutes. So obviously they're at like 54% expected goal share, 55%, sorry. You know, generating 63 shot attempts per 60 minutes. That Vancouver second line has been very good, or at least Pettersson and Garland have. And as you mentioned, Tanner Pearson typically does not hurt a line. So I do like that Vancouver second line, but I think it's power play stacking that you'd want to do here. So like, you know, top line, take out Horvat, put in Pettersson is just fine. Top line plus Quinn Hughes is just fine. Besser, Pettersson plus Hughes, something like that. I think it's power play stacking that we'd attack on the Vancouver side. As far as their depth goes, I don't think there's anything I'd play on the third, fourth line from Vancouver, unless you're just like literally throwing darts in your 150s or something like that. It's just not a spot that I would attack. On the blue line, Mark Giordano's peripherals have really started to right themselves over the last little bit. He's still fairly expensive for what he does, though. I don't know if I necessarily want to play him for 5,400 over on DraftKings. I definitely don't want to play Oliver Ekman-Larsson at 5K. What do you think about defensemen in this game?
Yeah, I mean, Vinny Dunn at 3,400 secondary power play time, getting about 20 minutes a night, I think is fine. If you can tell me Hayden Fleury's going to get 16 to 18 minutes at 2,800, I'm interested. Quinn Hughes for correlating on the Vancouver side, but you want to punt Travis Hamonic, 3,600. It's okay. He's a little bit more pricey than I wanted.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe he would come to like 3K today, but no dice on Travis Hamonic just yet. Just want to let's get to some another question in chat. It says, is it possible to go 4 from one team and play the opposing goalie? You and I, we haven't talked a lot about stacking versus goalies. I know I don't do it. I don't stack versus goalies. I'll use a one-off versus a goalie. Like if I had Peter Mrazek playing tonight, I'd have no problem not really playing Cole Caulfield or something like that in the same lineup, or Brendan Gallagher in the same lineup. I don't know if like I would play Martin Jones and then stack Carolina 1 or something. It can work. I don't want to say it can't work. This is still a game about math. It's not something that I do very often because it seems like you're really trying to thread the needle on that. What do you think?
Yeah, you really got to thread the needle, especially on a 5-game slate. I think it gets more viable the less games. Like if you have a 3-game slate and you really like your stacking, you can only fit it with the goalie going against him and you know he's going to see a ton of volume, then yeah, go for it and maybe it works out. But like, I don't know, like if you're going to stack Montembeault against Toronto, like, yeah, maybe he's going to see volume, but there's a good chance he isn't optimal because he gives up 5 goals. You know what I mean? So like you need to secure, like if you're going to stack against your goalie, you need to secure that saves bonus and have a shot to win. Like I just don't see, like maybe the Canadiens shock and we're all just crazy, but like I don't see a path to victory here with Montembeault. But like the thing is on the slate, goalie, there aren't many cheap goalies. Like you're either, if you want to pay down, it's either Montembeault or Martin Jones, you know what I mean? Otherwise you're going almost above 8K for everyone else. So I don't know. If you need to do it, I guess you can do it. I just worry that, Montembeault could go negative today.
Yeah, it's not, like I said, I would use a player or a defenseman or something like that against my goalie. I don't know if I'd full stack. It can work. Obviously it can. Montreal gets 3, or Toronto 1 gets 3 perfectly correlated goals. And Montembeault, allows 3 on 41 shots, gets the win. Yeah, that works. But, like I said, you're really threading the needle there. It's not something I do a lot. Here at Awesemo, we have the Awesemo Hall of Fame where we like to celebrate our winners. If you'd like to get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame, this is how you do it. You download the Awesemo avatar from awesemo.com/avatar. You place in the top 3 of a contest with at least 5,000 contestants, and you tweet those wins to the Awesemo Hoff account. You'll see one of our producers, Jordan Klein, taking down 3rd in the NBA Showdown. I think that was All-Star game over the weekend. So, attaboy, Jordan, congrats to you. Timothy Beechler, we see him in these shots every once in a while. Took down 3rd in the NASCAR Minimax Daytona yesterday. Congrats to him. And we see Hockey Cards Plus taking down 2nd in the Sunday NHL 5-hole for $2. Over on FanDuel. So if you want to get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame, download the Awesemo avatar at awesemo.com/avatar, place in the top 3 of a contest with at least 5,000 contestants, and then tweet those wins into the Awesemo Hoff account. Normally this is the time of the show where I'd let everybody know what we have coming up later on in the day, but it's only NHL today. So not a lot coming up. We do have some PGA videos being recorded for betting, for values, for things like that. So if you're into PGA, we do have some videos that should be going up on the site over the next couple days. Josh, going to ask you for your hat trick picks and your goalies. My hat trick pick for today, I'm going to get a little bit wild with this one. I'm going with Nazem Kadri. My goalies are Darcy Kemper, Jacob Markstrom, Thatcher Demko. Who you got?
Yeah, I like Markstrom, Demko. I think like Freddie, I think is fine. I think, I just don't like spending down, but like if I had to spend down today, I'd probably play Marty Jones over Montembeault just because, I don't know, like Carolina is a high volume team, sometimes has issues scoring. I don't know. I just feel a little bit safer with Marty Jones, as crazy as that sounds. Like the Montreal goalies have been the worst in the league. So I don't know. I feel a little bit safer spending up for goalie today. My hat trick pick is going to be Teuvo Teravainen.
There you go. Teuvo Teravainen. Nazem Kadri are your hat trick picks. We still have a few minutes left on the show, so if there's anybody in the YouTube chat that has a question that you want to get in real quick before lock, go right ahead. Josh, I'm just gonna ask you, what's your favorite kind of like fillery type stack here today? Like, what's your favorite stack that might be coming in under like 14K or something like that on DraftKings, or favorite couple stacks at least?
Do you like the McCann Donato? I mean, I don't know if they're going to be together. I don't know if I want to include Donskoy, but there's that. Let's see, under 14. So, Calgary 2, obviously at 13-3 is going to be my favorite one. Don't mind Philly 2. They're 12-5.
Hold on. Brand new Vancouver lines just came out before lock. Dickinson, Horvat, Besser, Pearson, Miller, Garland, Podkolzin, Pettersson, Hoglander. So Besser, Miller, and Pettersson are across 3 different lines. Horvat and Besser on the top line. Oh God. I'm gonna have to change some things whenever we do get off the air, but I just want to let everybody know those see, that changes things now, because then what's Donato McCann going to get for a matchup now? That's kind of the issue. We were going to use Donato McCann because they're going to go into a bad line. Like Horvat, Besser, and Dickinson doesn't strike me as a great defensive line, but Pearson, Miller, and Garland could be, and I don't want Pearson, Miller, and Garland going up against Donato and McCann.
I feel like Pearson, Miller, Donato are going to get the top line. I don't know. We'll have to see Seattle lines too. They could mix it up too. So luckily this is the late game and we'll have time to, think about it. But
yeah, exactly. Should mention that Oliver Ekman-Larsson as well, expected to play. He's at morning skate. He did leave their last game a little bit late, but he is skating. So it looks like he's going to play. But again, he's way too expensive over on DraftKings. All right. Brett Skinner says started a $20 to 1K challenge on Jock Market playing NHL and NBA. Have to credit the show a ton. Balance as of today is 1156. Thanks to both of you. Well, that's awesome work by you. I mean, we're certainly not doing any NBA, but good job for you, Brett Skinner. All right, Josh, we got to get out of here. Lineups are about to lock. Good luck today, everybody. We will be back tomorrow with another show, tomorrow and Wednesday, 2 more live before locks. So 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. Eastern, it looks like. So good luck out there today, everybody. For producer Mike, for our single entry assassin Josh, I'm Michael Clifford saying we'll see you tomorrow.
See you later. What's he barking at?
There's a squirrel on the deck.
Oh, there's a squirrel on the deck.
On the deck.